August 20th, 2021, 6:47 in the morning. The sun breaks over the Cascade Mountains, painting the Oregon Valley in shades of copper and gold. On the crest of Hill 472, a man stands alone. General Ricardo Mendoza is 55 years old. His uniform is torn. His face is blackened by 3 days of smoke and gunfire. His hands, which once fixed engines in a Houston garage, now shake as they grip a set of binoculars. Below him, stretching across the valley floor like a river of steel and flesh, 40,000 enemy soldiers move eastward, desperate, defeated, trying to escape. Mendoza lowers the binoculars. He closes his eyes. For just a moment, he allows himself to feel the weight of what he has done. 1,500 Texans under his command held this hill for 72 hours. 127 of them will never see Texas again. Their blood has soaked into Oregon soil. Their sacrifice has closed the trap. The wind picks up. The American flag behind him, bullet-torn and carbon-stained, snaps in the breeze like a whip crack. Mendoza opens his eyes. He reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a rosary. The beads are worn smooth from decades of prayer. His father pressed these beads into his 80-year-old hand the night they fled Warsaw in 1980. The night Soviet tanks rolled through the streets. The night his family chose freedom over fear. Mendoza whispers in Polish, then in English. A prayer his mother taught him. A prayer for the dead. A prayer for the living. A prayer for mercy. 300 yards down the slope, a figure emerges from the enemy lines. An officer, hands raised, white cloth tied to his rifle barrel, walking slowly up the hill towards certain death or uncertain mercy. Mendoza watches him come. This is the moment. This is where everything changes. This is where America shows the world what it truly means to be strong. He takes a breath. He stands taller. He waits. The story of how America got to this moment, how 3 soldiers redefined courage, and how mercy became the most powerful weapon of all begins 2 months earlier. It begins with an invasion. It begins with fear. It begins with a phone call that changed everything. June 6, 2027. The date that will echo through American history like a thunderclap. The beaches of Washington state erupt in fire and smoke. 150,000 enemy troops backed by modern armor and air support storm the coastline in a coordinated assault that catches America sleeping. Seattle burns. Portland falls within hours. The I-5 corridor becomes a highway of terror as civilians flee south, clogging roads, abandoning cars, running from an enemy they never imagined would reach American soil. For the first time since 1814, a foreign military force successfully invades the continental United States. The news spreads like wildfire. Panic grips the nation. The West Coast, America's technological heart, its cultural engine falls under enemy control in less than a week. But panic creates something else, something the enemy did not anticipate. Something that has defined America since 1776, resolve. Within 24 hours of the invasion, 300,000 National Guard troops mobilize. Within 48 hours, active duty forces from across the country converge on staging areas in California, Idaho, and Montana. Within 72 hours, America is no longer reeling. America is preparing to strike back. Among those responding to the call is a 32-year-old National Guard officer from Helena, Montana. His name is Jackson Cole. His friends call him Jack. His wife calls him Honey. His 5-year-old son calls him Daddy. In 3 months, the nation will call him a hero. But on June 6, 2027, he is just a man with motor oil under his fingernails and a decision to make. The garage in Helena is cool despite the summer heat. Cole lies on a creeper beneath his Ford F-150 wrench in hand, replacing a worn serpentine belt. Classic country music plays from a radio on the workbench. His wife Emily is inside the house making lunch. His son Ethan is in the yard playing with toy soldiers. It is a perfect Saturday, the kind of Saturday that makes Montana feel like the last good place on earth. The radio cuts out mid-song. An emergency tone pierces the silence. Cole rolls out from under the truck, grease-stained hands reaching for the volume knob. The announcer's voice is tight, professional, barely concealing terror. Massive coordinated attacks on Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Tacoma, and Bellingham. Foreign military forces confirmed on American soil. Casualties unknown, but estimated in the thousands. The president has declared a national emergency. All military personnel are being recalled to active duty immediately. Cole stands frozen. The wrench dangles from his hand, forgotten. Through the open garage door, he can see Ethan running through the grass, diving, rolling, pretending his plastic soldiers are storming a beach. The boy makes explosion sounds with his mouth. He has no idea that real explosions are tearing through cities 700 miles away. Emily appears in the doorway. Her face is pale. She has heard the news. She knows what it means. Her eyes meet his across the concrete floor of the garage. Neither speaks. They do not need to. 12 years of marriage, 2 combat deployments to the Middle East. They have been here before. They know this moment. They hate this moment. Cole sets down the wrench. He walks to her. He pulls her close. She smells like vanilla in summer and home. She feels small in his arms, fragile, though he knows she is stronger than he will ever be. She is the one who will stay. She is the one who will wait. She is the one who will keep their life together while he tears other lives apart. 4 hours later, Cole kisses his son goodbye. The boy does not understand why Daddy is wearing his uniform, why Daddy is packing a bag, why Mommy is crying. Cole kneels eye level with the child. He wants to memorize this face, these eyes, this moment. Be good for your mom, buddy. Daddy has to go to work for a while. Ethan nods. His small hand grips his father's thumb. The squeeze is surprisingly strong. Cole feels his throat tighten. He stands quickly before the boy can see tears, before the boy can learn that men cry, before the boy can understand that sometimes work means war and goodbye might mean forever. The drive to the armory takes 20 minutes. Cole does not remember any of it. 1,200 miles to the south in Houston, Texas, another soldier receives the same call. But for Ricardo Mendoza, this is not just duty. This is personal. This is prophecy. This is the bill coming due for freedom granted 47 years ago. Mendoza is in his backyard when the call comes. He is grilling burgers and hot dogs for a family cookout. His grandchildren are splashing in a pool. His daughter is setting the table on the patio. His wife Maria is bringing out a pitcher of sweet tea. The smell of mesquite smoke and seared beef fills the air. Texas in summer. Texas at peace. Texas about to send its sons to war again. His phone buzzes. He glances at the screen. The caller ID says Pentagon. His hand stops tongs frozen mid-flip. He knows. Before he answers, he knows. When the call ends, he stands motionless. The burgers burn. Smoke rises. Maria sees his face and understands immediately. She was a military wife for 30 years. She knows that look, that stillness, that moment when the world splits into before and after. She walks to him. She takes the tongs from his hand. She touches his cheek. She whispers just 2 words. Be safe. He nods. He cannot speak. If he speaks, he will break. And he cannot break. Not in front of the children, not in front of his daughter who grew up watching him deploy again and again. Not in front of his wife who has spent decades waiting by phones and tracking news and pretending she is not terrified every single day he is gone. He walks into the house. He goes to his closet. He pulls out his uniform. It still fits. Barely. He is 55, not 25. His knees ache, his back protests. But his hands are steady as he buttons the shirt. His resolve is iron as he laces his boots. On the closet shelf in a small wooden box sits the rosary. He lifts it carefully as if it might shatter. The beads are smooth as river stones. His father's fingers wore them down. His grandfather's before that. 3 generations of prayer compressed into these 49 beads. He slips it over his head, tucks it under his shirt. The weight against his chest is familiar, comforting, a reminder of where he came from and why he fights. Mendoza looks at himself in the mirror. The man staring back is older than he feels, gray at the temples, lines around the eyes. But the eyes themselves are young, fierce, ready. He spent 8 years as a boy in communist Poland, where soldiers served the state and crushed dissent. He has spent 47 years in America, where soldiers serve the people and defend freedom. He knows the difference. He has lived the difference. This is not just his country. This is his promise. The promise his father died believing. The promise he swore to uphold. The promise that America keeps. He walks back outside. His grandchildren are still playing. Innocent. Unaware. He watches them for a long moment, burning the image into memory. Then he squares his shoulders and tells his family he has to go. His grandson, 6 years old, asks where. To protect you, mijo. To protect everyone. The boy accepts this without question. Children believe their grandfathers can do anything. Mendoza prays the boy is right. While Cole drives north and Mendoza flies east, a third man sits in a command center outside Sacramento, California. Lieutenant General Marcus Reynolds is 48 years old, MIT educated, DARPA innovator, strategic genius. He has spent the last 15 years studying war through computer models and simulations. Now war has come to his homeland, and simulations are no longer enough. Reynolds stands before a holographic map of the Pacific Northwest. Red markers indicate enemy positions. Blue markers show American forces. The enemy has superior numbers, superior position, superior momentum. Every conventional analysis says America is facing months, maybe years of brutal fighting to retake the coast. Reynolds does not believe in conventional analysis. He believes in asymmetry. He believes in innovation. He believes that the side that thinks differently wins. An aide approaches with a coffee. Reynolds takes it without looking, his eyes never leaving the map. He sips. It is terrible, burnt, overbrewed. But it is American coffee made by American soldiers defending American soil. It tastes like purpose. He traces a line on the map with one finger. The enemy is overextended. They have pushed deep into Oregon and Washington, but their supply lines are thin. Their flanks are exposed. They are occupying cities, which means they are dispersed. They are trying to hold everything, which means they can defend nothing. Reynolds sees it. The trap, the opportunity, the narrow corridor between the Cascade Mountains and the sea, where if America can move fast enough, strike hard enough, coordinate perfectly enough, the entire enemy force can be surrounded and destroyed. But it requires something America has not attempted since World War II. A massive coordinated offensive using untested doctrine and experimental equipment. It requires night attacks with armored columns. It requires smoke screens spanning miles. It requires soldiers willing to hold positions against overwhelming odds. It requires men like Cole and Mendoza, men who will stand when every instinct screams to run, men who will trust their commanders even when the plan sounds insane, men who believe in something bigger than themselves. Reynolds picks up a secure phone. He makes 6 calls in rapid succession. Each call sets in motion a cascade of orders that will move 10,000 troops, 500 vehicles, and 100 aircraft. Each call brings America one step closer to striking back. The last call is to the president. Reynolds explains his plan in 3 minutes. The president listens in silence. When Reynolds finishes, there is a long pause. Then the president asks just one question. Will it work? Reynolds does not hesitate. Yes, sir. If our soldiers do their job, if they hold when it matters, if they remember what they are fighting for, yes, sir, it will work. The president authorizes the operation. Reynolds hangs up. He looks at the map again. In 8 weeks, this war will be decided. In 8 weeks, America will either reclaim its coast or face years of grinding conflict. In 8 weeks, 3 soldiers who have never met will stand together in a valley in Oregon and prove that mercy is the ultimate strength. But first, they have to survive the longest night of their lives. July turns to August. American forces retake Eugene, push north toward Portland. The enemy retreats but does not break. They fight for every town, every bridge, every mile of highway. The casualties mount. 300 Americans killed in the first week, 500 the second, 1,000 the third. Each name is a family shattered. Each flag-draped coffin is a reminder of the cost. But the plan is working, slowly, carefully. The enemy is being herded north, pushed into an ever-narrowing corridor between mountains and ocean. They do not realize it yet. They think they are conducting an orderly withdrawal. They think they are maintaining their strength for a counteroffensive. They are wrong. They are walking into the largest trap set on American soil in a century. August 7th. The trap is ready. Cole's Montana Regiment has moved into position north of Salem. Mendoza's Texas Division is staging south of Yakima. Reynolds is in his mobile command post watching real-time feeds from drones and satellites. The enemy is exactly where he needs them to be. Now comes the hard part. Now comes the night attack. Now comes the moment when American soldiers will do something the enemy believes is impossible. They will advance in complete darkness, navigate by instruments alone, and break through prepared defensive positions without the advantage of surprise or superior numbers. They will do it because they trust their equipment, they trust their training, they trust their leaders, they trust each other. And most of all, they trust in the idea that America fights for the idea that gives ordinary people the courage to do extraordinary things. Freedom. Cole receives his orders at 2200 hours. His regiment will spearhead the assault. 1,200 men, 400 vehicles, 6 miles of enemy territory to cross before dawn. He gathers his officers in a field outside Salem. Moths flutter around the red-lensed flashlights. The night is warm, windless, perfect for what they are about to attempt. He does not give a speech. He is not good at speeches. He is a mechanic from Montana who learned to lead by watching his father fix tractors and treat customers with honesty. But he knows his men need something, some word, some assurance that what they are about to do is not suicide. So he tells them the truth. Gentlemen, I will not lie to you. This is dangerous. Some of us will not see tomorrow. But if we do this, if we break through tonight, we save thousands of American lives. We end this war months, maybe years earlier. We show the world that America still knows how to fight, not just with bigger weapons, but with smarter tactics, with innovation, with courage. That is what we do. That is who we are. That is why we will win. The officers nod. They disperse to their units. Orders ripple down the chain of command. Engines turn over. Radios crackle with final checks. Cole climbs into his tank, settles into the commander's seat, puts on his helmet. The smell of diesel and old sweat fills his nostrils. The metal is cold against his back, despite the summer night. He pulls out the photo of Emily and Ethan taped inside his helmet. He kisses it, once tucks it back. His gunner, Sergeant Davis, 20 years old, looks at him. The kid is scared. Every man in this tank is scared. Fear is not weakness. Fear is intelligence, recognizing danger. Courage is acting despite the fear. Davis asks the question they are all thinking. Sir, are you scared? Cole does not lie. Terrified, Davis. But my daddy taught me something. He said fear means you are still alive. Use it. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it remind you what you are fighting for. Then do your damn job anyway. Davis nods. The loader and driver exchange glances. They are ready as any men can be before diving into the unknown. 23:30 hours. The order comes. A single word crackles across every radio in the assault force. Execute. 400 vehicles surge forward into absolute darkness. No headlights, no running lights, no illumination of any kind except the faint green glow of night vision displays. To an outside observer, it would look like the ground itself is moving. A slow, inexorable tide of American steel rolling north toward an unsuspecting enemy. Cole rides with his head out of the turret, night vision goggles, transforming the world into shades of green and black. The landscape scrolls past like a fever dream. Trees, fields, abandoned farms, everything rendered alien by technology and darkness. The engine beneath him rumbles a living thing, hungry and tireless. They cover 2 miles without contact. 3, 4. The enemy is there somewhere ahead, dug in and waiting for an attack that will never come, because the attack is already past them, is flowing around them like water around stones, is penetrating deep into their rear before anyone realizes what is happening. Then, at kilometer 6 first contact, muzzle flashes in the darkness. Tracer rounds arcing through the night like malevolent fireflies. The peaceful advance becomes a storm of metal and fire and death. The explosion hits 30 feet to Cole's left. The concussion wave rocks his tank, throwing him against the turret rim. His ears ring, his vision blurs. For 3 seconds, the world is silent, except for a high-pitched whine that seems to come from inside his skull. Then sound crashes back. Screaming engines, machine gun fire, the metallic ping of bullets ricocheting off armor. His radio crackles to life. Multiple voices shouting over each other. Contact front, contact left, tank hit, crew bailing out. Medic, medic, medic. Cole forces himself to focus. This is the moment commanders train for but never feel ready for. The moment when chaos threatens to shatter carefully laid plans, when fear threatens to become panic, when the difference between victory and massacre comes down to one voice on the radio staying calm. He keys his mic. His voice is steady, deliberate, louder than necessary but not shouting. All Warhammer units. This is Warhammer 6. Hold formation. Return fire. Keep moving. Do not stop. I say again, do not stop. We push through or we die here. The effect is immediate. The panicked chatter diminishes. His company commanders acknowledge. The advance resumes. Not smooth, not clean, but moving. Always moving. Because a moving target is harder to kill. Because momentum is life. Because stopping in a kill zone is death. Cole's tank pushes forward. His gunner engages targets as they appear. Brief flashes of heat in the thermal sight. A squeeze of the trigger. The roar of the main gun. The target disappears. Another appears. The cycle repeats. There is no thought, no hesitation, just stimulus and response. See, shoot, kill, survive. They break through the first defensive line at 01:15 hours. American casualties are lighter than expected. Surprise achieved. Enemy confusion total. By 0300 hours, Cole's regiment has penetrated 6 miles into enemy territory. The breakthrough is complete. The German Blitzkrieg of 1940. The American advance is unstoppable for the same reason. Speed, violence, shock. Dawn comes slowly bleeding red and orange across the Cascade Peaks. Cole climbs out of his tank as the sky brightens. His legs are numb from hours in the commander's seat. His ears still ring from the concussion. His hands shake from adrenaline crash. He removes his helmet, lets the cool morning air wash over his sweat-soaked hair. Around him, the aftermath of violence. Burning vehicles, scorched earth, bodies, some American, most enemy, all dead, all someone's son, all paying the price for decisions made by men in distant capitals who will never see this field, never smell this smoke, never carry these memories. A young soldier, 19, maybe 20, sits on the ground near a destroyed enemy position. He is vomiting, not from fear, from seeing, from understanding, from the moment when war stops being abstract and becomes corpses and blood, and the knowledge that you helped create this. Cole walks over, sits down beside him, says nothing. Sometimes words are useless. Sometimes the only comfort is presence, the knowledge that you are not alone in your horror. After a minute, the soldier wipes his mouth, looks at Cole. Does it get easier? Sir Cole considers lying, decides against it. This kid deserves truth. No, it gets familiar, but never easy. The day it stops affecting you, that is when you need to worry. That is when you have lost something important. The soldier nods. He stands. He picks up his rifle. He rejoins his squad. Cole watches him go. 24 hours ago, that boy had never killed anyone. Now he has killed many. He will carry that for the rest of his life. It will change him. It will age him. It will make him careful with words like glory and honor and victory because he now knows the weight of those words. But he will keep fighting because his buddies are fighting, because his country needs him, because sometimes the only way to stop violence is through violence. And that terrible paradox is the burden soldiers carry so civilians never have to. Cole returns to his tank. Reynolds is on the radio, voice crackling through static. Warhammer 6, this is Warhammer Actual. Excellent work tonight. You have torn a hole in their line they cannot repair. Now we exploit. Phase 2 begins in 6 hours. Get your men fed, rested, and ready. We have a long way to go. Cole acknowledges. 6 hours. His men will get maybe 4 hours of sleep. Not enough, never enough. But enough to keep moving. Enough to keep fighting. Enough to finish what they started. He looks east toward the mountains. Somewhere beyond those peaks, Mendoza's Texans are moving into position. Somewhere in Sacramento, Reynolds is orchestrating a symphony of destruction. 3 men who have never met working toward a single goal. Victory, not just military victory, something deeper, something that will define what America means in the 21st century. But to understand what makes this battle different, to understand why history will remember these 3 soldiers, not just for winning, but for how they won, we must step back. We must look beyond tactics and strategy. We must examine the fundamental difference between how America fights and how its enemies fight. Throughout American history, from the frozen fields of Valley Forge to the beaches of Normandy to the deserts of Iraq, American soldiers have carried something into battle that cannot be issued from a quartermaster, cannot be taught in boot camp, cannot be replicated by adversaries no matter how sophisticated their weapons. Values. At Valley Forge, Washington's army could have plundered. They starved instead, protecting the civilians they served. At Normandy, American GIs shared chocolate with German children whose parents had tried to kill them hours before. In Iraq, American medics treated enemy wounded with the same care given to their own brothers in arms. This was not weakness. This was not naivety. This was strength. The strength to remain human when inhumanity would be easier. The strength to show mercy when vengeance would feel righteous. The strength to fight for an idea bigger than victory, the idea that how you win matters as much as whether you win. The enemy in this war did not share these values, could not comprehend them, saw them as fatal flaws to be exploited. This misunderstanding would cost them everything. In Sacramento, Reynolds stands before his command staff, 30 officers from across the American military. Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, National Guard, active duty, reserves. A cross-section of American service unified by the uniform and the oath they all swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. On the holographic display behind him, the battlefield glows in 3 dimensions. Red markers show enemy positions. Blue markers show friendly forces. The gap between them is narrowing. The noose is tightening, but Reynolds is not satisfied. Speed is good. Violence is necessary. But neither will end this war the way it needs to end. He needs innovation. He needs something the enemy has never seen. Something that will break their will as thoroughly as their lines. He calls up a schematic, a vehicle, blocky, utilitarian, covered in composite armor. The M2050 Wolfpack Armored Personnel Carrier. A machine that exists because of his vision, his arguments, his willingness to challenge decades of military doctrine. For 100 years, armored personnel carriers have been support vehicles, taxis for infantry, lightly armed, lightly armored, designed to drop soldiers near a fight, not in the middle of one. Reynolds thought this was backwards. Infantry die on the approach. They die crossing open ground. They die in the vulnerable seconds between leaving the vehicle and reaching cover. What if, Reynolds argued, you eliminate that vulnerability? What if you create a vehicle that can drive directly into enemy positions protected by armor, suppressing with its own weapons, disgorging troops only when already inside the enemy line? The Pentagon said impossible. Too heavy, too expensive, too complicated. Reynolds said necessary, then proved it. He took obsolete self-propelled howitzers, strip-weighted their guns, reinforced their armor, added thermal vision and communication systems. He created a weapon no army in the world possessed. And now these wolf packs are about to change warfare. Reynolds explains his next move. Operation Smokescreen, a daylight assault conducted under artificial fog. Smoke generators will pump white phosphorus across 5 square miles of battlefield. American forces will advance through the smoke using thermal vision. The enemy without such technology will be blind, helpless, overrun before they understand what is happening. One officer asked the obvious question. What about civilians? Reynolds has an answer ready. There are no civilians in the combat zone. They evacuated weeks ago. Every person in that valley is a combatant or a prisoner. This smoke will save American lives. That is the only calculation that matters to him today. But he adds something else, something that reveals who Reynolds truly is beneath the strategic genius and MIT education and DARPA credentials. Gentlemen, we will use overwhelming force. We will destroy the enemy army, but we will do it by American rules. That means prisoners will be treated humanely. Wounded will receive medical care. We will not commit war crimes even when war crimes might be easier. Because the moment we abandon those standards, the moment we become what we are fighting against, we lose. Not the battle, not the war, but something more important. We lose what makes America worth defending. The room is silent, then nods. These officers understand. They have seen what happens when armies abandon restraint. They have served in wars where the rules broke down and atrocities followed. They know Reynolds is right. Victory without honor is just murder at scale. The briefing ends. Officers disperse to their units. Orders cascade down the chain of command. Within 4 hours, every American unit in Oregon will know the plan. Within 8 hours, they will execute. Reynolds remains alone in the command center. He pours himself coffee from a battered percolator. The coffee is strong, bitter. It tastes like every forward operating base he has ever served in. He drinks it black, no sugar feeling the heat spread through his chest. On the desk beside him, a photograph. His family, wife, 2 daughters, taken last Christmas. Everyone smiling, everyone safe, everyone trusting that daddy's work matters, that the long absences and missed birthdays and constant worry are worth it because he is defending them. Defending the world they take for granted. The world where little girls can grow up without fear of bombs or invasions or soldiers kicking down doors in the night. Reynolds touches the photo, just once. A private moment. Then he turns back to the maps and the plans and the terrible mathematics of war where success is measured in casualties minimized rather than eliminated. August 14th, 1100 hours. North of Salem, Cole's regiment prepares for Operation Smokescreen. Smoke generators roar to life, pumping artificial fog across the battlefield. The white phosphorus creates a dense, acrid cloud that spreads like living thing, swallowing terrain, obliterating sight, transforming daylight into twilight, into near darkness. Cole sits in his tank watching the smoke roll past his vision blocks. Visibility drops from miles to hundreds of yards, to 50 feet to nothing. The world becomes a gray void, claustrophobic, disorienting, terrifying. His radio crackles. Reynolds himself speaking to every commander in the assault. All units Warhammer Actual. The smoke is your armor. The enemy cannot target what they cannot see. Trust your instruments, trust your training, trust each other. Move with confidence. The day belongs to America. The tanks roll forward, 15 miles per hour, painfully slow, but in zero visibility speed, kills your own men. Cole navigates by GPS in the thermal sight following the heat signature of the tank ahead. It is like driving through a dream, like being underwater, like moving through a world that should not exist. They travel for 20 minutes without contact. The enemy is there somewhere in the fog, but they cannot see the Americans any better than the Americans can see them. It is a strange, suspended moment. 2 armies passing within yards of each other, invisible, lethal, waiting for the smoke to clear and the killing to resume. Then the wind shifts. The smoke thins. Visibility improves to 100 yards, 200, and they're emerging from the gray like leviathans rising from an ocean enemy, heavy tanks. T-14 Armadas, Russia's finest armor, rarely exported, devastating in combat. 6 of them in formation guns traversing Hunting. Cole's gunner sees them at the same instant. Target right. Range 800. The Armadas see Cole's company at the same moment. For 3 seconds, nobody fires. Both forces are surprised. Both commanders are calculating. Distance, angles, cover, advantage. Cole makes his decision first. All Warhammer 6 elements engage at will. Spread out, flank them, hit them from sides. The battlefield explodes. Tank cannons roar, shells streak through smoke-streaked air. The first American tank dies penetrated through the frontal armor by an Armada's 125mm gun. The crew bails out uniforms, smoking faces blackened. They are alive. Barely. Cole's company maneuvers. The Armadas are lethal head-on, but like all tanks vulnerable from the sides and rear. American Abrams tanks circle using terrain, using buildings, using every piece of cover to get angles. It is a deadly dance. Predators and prey constantly switching roles. Cole's gunner gets a shot. Armada exposed turning to engage another threat. Range 600 yards. Flank shot. Perfect angle. Fire. The 120mm depleted uranium penetrator crosses the distance in less than a second. It hits the Armada behind the turret ring, the weakest point, the shot that every tank commander dreams of and dreads in equal measure. The Armada shudders, stops. Smoke pours from hatches. No secondary explosion, just death. Quick and final. 4 more Armadas die in the next 90 seconds. 1 escapes. The smoke swallows it and it is gone. Cole's company has lost 3 tanks, 11 men killed, 16 wounded. But they hold the ground. They hold the advance. They prove that American crews and American tanks fighting with American tactics can defeat any enemy armor in the world. As the smoke clears, Cole sees the cost. Burning vehicles, bodies, the scorched earth where modern weapons met modern armor, and both lost. He climbs out of his tank. His legs are shaking. His hands are trembling. He has been in combat for 8 days straight. He has slept maybe 20 hours total. His body is approaching its limits. But his mind is clear. His purpose is focused. Because 600 miles to the north, Mendoza is about to face something worse than enemy tanks. Mendoza is about to face a decision that will define his life and legacy. Hill 472 rises from the Oregon landscape like a clenched fist. 1,700 feet of rock and scrub overlooking the last open corridor between the American forces and the trapped enemy army. Whoever controls this hill controls the pocket. Whoever loses it, loses the war. Reynolds gives Mendoza the order personally. Take Hill 472, hold it, for as long as necessary, until Cole can seal the southern escape route. Could be 12 hours, could be 3 days. However long it takes. Mendoza looks at the hill through binoculars. It is steep, heavily defended, covered by enemy artillery. Taking it will cost blood. Holding it will cost more. He turns to his officers, Texans, all of them. Men he has trained with for years, men who trust him, men who will follow his orders into hell because they know he would lead them personally. Gentlemen, you see that hill. That is our objective. That is where we write the next chapter of Texas military history. Alamo, San Jacinto, Hill 472. Our grandchildren will learn our names. Let us make sure they learn we stood when it mattered. The assault begins at 0600 hours. Artillery pounds the summit for 30 minutes. The earth erupts, trees explode, defensive positions disintegrate. But when the barrage lifts and the Texans advance, the enemy is still there, dug deep, determined, fighting for survival because they know if this hill falls, they are doomed. The climb is brutal. Tanks struggle on the steep slopes. Infantry advance through minefields. Enemy machine guns sweep the approaches. Men fall, men scream. Men keep climbing because the man beside them is climbing, and you do not let your brothers fight alone. Mendoza is 55 years old. He should be in a command post directing the battle from safety. Instead, he is halfway up the hill with his men, not because he is reckless, because he is a leader, because soldiers fight harder when they can see their commander sharing their danger. A mine explodes 30 yards ahead. A young Private Marcus Webb, 19 years old, Texas National Guard, goes down. His leg is gone below the knee. He is screaming, bleeding out. Medics are pinned down. The area is still under fire. Nobody can reach him. Mendoza sees this, sees a boy dying, sees men frozen watching, wanting to help, but knowing that helping means dying. Mendoza does not think. He moves. 55 years old, creaking knees, aching back, none of it matters. He runs through the kill zone, bullets cracking past his head, explosions geysering dirt. He reaches Webb. He applies a tourniquet with hands steady from decades of practice. He drags the boy to cover. 200 pounds of dead weight across 50 yards of hell. He gets Webb behind a rock, calls for a medic. The boy is crying, not from pain. The morphine has kicked in, from shame, from feeling like he failed. Mendoza grips his hand, looks in his eyes. Son, you did not fail. You stood, you advanced, you bled for Texas. That is all any soldier can do. You rest now. Let us finish this. Webb nods. His eyes drift closed. The medic arrives, takes over. Mendoza stands. Returns to the fight as if dodging machine gun fire to save a private is just another task on his daily list. His men see this. Every Texan on that hill sees their general risk his life for the lowest-ranking soldier in the regiment. It transforms them. They are no longer just fighting for victory. They are fighting for him, for each other, for the idea that in the American military rank matters, but humanity matters more. By 0730 hours, the Texans reach the summit. The cost is staggering. 127 killed in 90 minutes, 300 wounded. But they hold the high ground. They plant the American flag. They dig in for what comes next, because the enemy knows what this hill means, and they are going to try to take it back. Mendoza stands on the crest of Hill 472 and looks down into the valley. What he sees will haunt him for the rest of his life. 40,000 men, an entire army, crushed into a corridor 5 miles wide and shrinking by the hour. Vehicles packed so tightly they cannot maneuver. Artillery pieces abandoned for lack of fuel. Supply trucks burning. Wounded lying in ditches because there are no medics left. An army that 3 months ago invaded America with pride and power, now reduced to a desperate mob fleeing toward a safety that no longer exists. This is what victory looks like. This is what happens when strategy and courage and sacrifice converge. This is the moment commanders dream of and dread in equal measure. Total battlefield dominance, total enemy collapse, total responsibility for what comes next. Mendoza lowers his binoculars. His hands are steady despite 3 days without sleep. His voice is calm despite the knowledge that the hardest fighting still lies ahead. He gathers his officers, 8 men all exhausted, all wounded in small ways that they ignore, all watching him for the strength to continue. The enemy will counterattack within the hour. They have no choice. This hill is their last hope. We hold, they die. We break, they escape. It is that simple, that absolute. Captain James Houston, 32 years old, Texan through 4 generations, speaks what everyone is thinking. Sir, we are at 30% ammunition. Water is critical. Half the men have not eaten in 24 hours. How long can we hold? Mendoza's answer is not tactical. It is philosophical. It is the distilled wisdom of a man who fled communism as a boy and spent his life defending the country that gave him freedom. As long as it takes, Captain. As long as we remember why we are here, not just to win battles, but to prove that free men fight harder than slaves, that soldiers who choose to serve fight better than soldiers forced to serve, that America wins not because we are crueler, but because we are kinder. Hold that thought. Hold this hill. Everything else will follow. The officers nod. They disperse. Orders flow down to platoons, squads, individual fighting positions. The Texans prepare for the storm. It comes at noon. 5,000 enemy infantry, remnants of 3 elite divisions, men who have not eaten in days but still have pride, still have weapons, still have the desperate courage of the cornered. They come up the slopes in waves. The first wave dies under American machine gun fire. The second penetrates 50 yards before artillery shatters it. The third reaches the summit. Hand-to-hand combat, grenades, rifle butts, fighting too close for artillery, too confused for air support, too savage for mercy. Mendoza fights with his sidearm. 15 rounds. He empties the magazine into enemy soldiers 10 feet away. Reloads, fires again. Around him, Texans are falling. Young men he trained, men whose families he knows, men whose deaths he will have to explain to widows and mothers and children who will never understand why Daddy had to die on a hill in Oregon. The attack breaks at 12:45. The enemy retreats, leaves 2,000 dead on the slopes. The Texans hold but barely. They have lost another 90 men. Ammunition is now at 15%. The wounded outnumber the healthy. Medical supplies are exhausted. Water is down to half a canteen per man. And the enemy is gathering for another assault. Mendoza walks the perimeter, checking positions, encouraging men, making sure they see him upright, and moving despite the exhaustion that makes every step an act of will. He comes to a fighting position, manned by 3 young soldiers, all under 25, all wounded, all still at their posts. One of them, Private Webb, the boy Mendoza saved that morning, is propped against sandbags with a bandaged stump where his leg used to be. He has a rifle across his lap. His face is pale, but his eyes are clear. General, I can still shoot. Mendoza kneels beside him, takes the rifle gently, sets it aside. Son, you have done enough. More than enough. Webb's eyes fill with tears, not from pain, from shame, from feeling like he is abandoning his friends. Sir, I cannot just sit here while they fight. Mendoza puts a hand on the boy's shoulder, speaks quietly so only Webb can hear. You are 19 years old. You have lost your leg defending your country. You have earned the right to rest. There is no shame in being wounded. The shame is in those who never served. You did your part, Private Webb. You did it with honor. Now let us finish what you started. Webb nods, wipes his eyes, manages a weak smile. Kill some for me, sir. Mendoza promises he will. He moves on. But Webb's words stay with him. Kill some for me. The casual brutality of it. The acceptance of violence as currency. This is what war does. It takes children who should be worried about college and careers and girls and transforms them into killers who measure success in bodies. It is necessary. It is terrible. It is the burden Mendoza has carried for 30 years and will carry until he dies. At 1500 hours, the second assault comes, larger than the first, more desperate, led by enemy armor that somehow made it up the slopes. 3 tanks, old T-90s, battered and scarred but still deadly. They emerge from smoke like metal monsters, guns traversing, looking for targets. American anti-tank weapons engage. Missiles streak. 2 tanks die, the third keeps coming. It reaches the American line. Its machine gun sweeps trenches, killing men who survive the infantry assault. It turns its main gun toward Mendoza's command post. Then an American sergeant, 40 years old, father of 3, does something that will earn him the Medal of Honor posthumously. He sprints from cover with a satchel charge, runs alongside the tank, places the charge against the engine compartment. The tank realizes. The machine gun turns, cuts him down, but he has already pulled the fuse. The explosion rips the tank open. The crew dies instantly. The sergeant dies 10 seconds later, torn apart by bullets he no longer feels. Mendoza watches this, watches a man sacrifice himself to save his brothers, watches courage in its purest form. He will write the letter to this man's wife. He will attend the funeral. He will look into the eyes of 3 children and try to explain why their father is a hero. But no words will ever be adequate. No explanation will fill the hole in their lives. The assault breaks. The enemy retreats again. The Texans hold again. But they are finished. Ammunition is gone. Water is gone. Medical supplies are gone. If the enemy attacks a third time, the Texans will fight with rifles as clubs and bare hands. But they will not hold. At 1800 hours, a sound ripples across the valley. At first, Mendoza thinks it is thunder. Then he realizes. Engines. American engines. Coming from the north. Through the smoke and haze, shapes emerge. Abrams tanks, dozens of them. Cole's regiment. They have broken through. They have sealed the southern escape route. They have come to relieve the Texans who bought them time with blood. Mendoza feels something crack inside, not breaking, releasing. 3 days of holding everything together. 3 days of projecting strength he did not feel. 3 days of making decisions that killed men. It all floods out in a single moment of overwhelming relief. He sits down, just sits, right there on the hilltop. His legs simply stop holding him. He sits and he breathes and he allows himself to feel the weight of what he has done. Captain Houston approaches, stands beside him, says nothing. There are no words. Houston knows what Mendoza is feeling because he is feeling it too. They held. They survived. And now the war is won. But the battle is not over, because war is not just about killing enemies. War is about what you do with the enemies who surrender. And down in that valley, 40,000 men have realized they have no more fight left. They have no more hope. They have nothing except the choice between death and surrender. At 1900 hours, white flags begin appearing. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. An army surrendering not in units but as individuals. Men walking toward American lines with hands raised, weapons abandoned, faces hollow with exhaustion and relief and fear of what comes next. Cole's regiment receives them first. His soldiers, pumped full of adrenaline and rage and the euphoria of survival, see the enemy who tried to kill them now defenseless. It is a dangerous moment. The moment when discipline either holds or shatters. When soldiers either remain soldiers or become something darker. Cole sees this, sees the tension, sees hands tightening on weapons, sees eyes that have seen too much death now looking at more enemies to kill. He stands on his tank, makes himself visible to every man in his regiment. His voice carries across the battlefield. All Warhammer 6 elements. These men are prisoners. They will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. They will receive water, food, and medical care. Anyone who harms a prisoner answers to me personally. Is that understood? The response is scattered, reluctant, but it comes. Understood, sir. Cole jumps down, approaches the first group of prisoners. 20 men, ragged, terrified, expecting execution. Cole calls for water, his own canteen, half empty, precious. He hands it to the nearest prisoner. Drink, then move to the collection point. You are safe now. The prisoner stares at the canteen, at Cole, at the weapon Cole could use to kill him but is not using. The prisoner drinks, hands the canteen back, whispers in broken English, "Thank you." Cole nods, waves them on. The next group, the next 100, the next 1,000, it takes 6 hours to process them all. By midnight, 35,000 enemy soldiers are in American custody, the largest mass surrender on American soil since the Civil War. Reynolds flies in by helicopter at 0200 hours. He finds Mendoza and Cole standing together watching the last prisoners shuffle into temporary holding areas. The two men have finally met, shaken hands, shared the kind of exhausted silence that bonds soldiers more than words ever could. Reynolds approaches, looks at the scene. 48 hours ago, this valley was a battlefield. Now it is a humanitarian operation. American medics treating enemy wounded. American engineers setting up latrines and water points. American quartermasters distributing food. The enemy who invaded America are now dependent on American mercy for survival. Reynolds speaks quietly, to both men, to himself. This is how we win. Not just the battle, the peace. These men will go home someday. They will tell their families, their children. They will say Americans treated them with dignity when they deserved nothing. That story, gentlemen, is worth more than any weapon we possess. Mendoza nods. Cole nods. They understand. This is not weakness. This is power. The power to show mercy when vengeance would be easier. The power to remain human when inhumanity is expected. The power to prove that American values are not just propaganda, but principles lived even in the worst circumstances. The next morning, one prisoner asked to speak with the American commander. He is brought to Mendoza. The man is 45 years old, enemy colonel, commander of one of the shattered divisions. His name is Victor Volkov. He salutes. Mendoza returns it. Soldier to soldier, enemy to enemy, human to human. Volkov speaks through an interpreter. His voice is steady, but his eyes betray the emotion beneath. General, I surrender my remaining forces. I request that they be treated humanely. Mendoza's response is immediate, absolute. Colonel, your men will be treated with dignity and respect. That is the American way. You have my word. Volkov's composure breaks. Tears stream down his face. He is a professional soldier. He has fought in a dozen conflicts. He has seen victory and defeat, but he has never seen this. An enemy offering mercy, an enemy keeping his word. Volkov asks the question that has been tearing him apart for 3 days. Why we invaded your country, killed your soldiers, destroyed your cities. Why do you treat us with kindness? Mendoza thinks of his father, thinks of Warsaw, thinks of the night they fled communism, thinks of arriving in America and discovering that freedom is not just a word, but a lived reality. He answers not as a general, but as an immigrant, as a man who knows the difference between tyranny and democracy because he has experienced both. Because you are a soldier, Colonel, a good one following bad orders. My father fled a system where soldiers were tools of oppression. Here soldiers defend freedom. Even enemy soldiers deserve dignity. That is what separates us from the regimes we fight. Mendoza removes his canteen, his last water. He hands it to Volkov. Drink, Colonel. You have earned rest. Volkov drinks. The water is warm, metallic, the most precious thing he has tasted in days. He hands back the canteen. He tries to speak but cannot. So he does the only thing that makes sense. He salutes again, holds it. Mendoza returns the salute. Two soldiers, different armies, same understanding. War is not personal, war is policy. And the men who fight wars are not monsters, but human beings caught in circumstances beyond their control. This moment, this exchange, this salute will become legendary. Photographers capture it. It will appear in newspapers across America. It will be taught in military academies. It will be the image that defines this war. Not the battles, not the destruction, but this: mercy offered, dignity preserved, humanity affirmed. 3 months later, November 2027, Thanksgiving. The prisoner of war camp outside Eugene, Oregon, houses 30,000 enemy soldiers. They are fed, clothed, given medical care, but they are still prisoners, still far from home, still uncertain if they will ever see their families again. American command makes a decision. On Thanksgiving, the prisoners will receive a traditional American meal, not field rations, real turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. The same meal American soldiers are eating, the same meal American families are sharing across the nation. Some officers object. Why waste resources on the enemy? Why show kindness to men who would have shown us none? Reynolds answers with the only argument that matters. Because that is who we are. Because Thanksgiving is about gratitude. And today we are grateful that this war is over. That these men are prisoners instead of corpses. That we can afford to be generous. Generosity from strength is what makes America exceptional. The meal is served. 30,000 enemy soldiers sit in mess halls built by American engineers, eating food prepared by American cooks, receiving kindness from American guards. Many cry. Not from the food, though it is the best meal they have had in months, from the realization that they were wrong. About America, about Americans, about what this country represents. A young private, 19 years old, his name is Alexei, from a farm in Siberia, asks his guard a question. Why do you feed us? We are your enemy. The guard, 22 years old, from Iowa, answers with the simple wisdom of middle America. Son, the war is over. You are not my enemy anymore. You are just a kid far from home. And feeding people, that is what we do. That is America. Alexei cries. The guard does not mock him, does not look away, just lets him cry. Lets him process, lets him understand that kindness is not weakness and mercy is not surrender. In his barracks that night, Alexei writes a letter home. The censors will read it before it goes out, but they will let it pass because it says what they want the world to know. He writes to his mother. He writes about the invasion, about the battle, about the surrender, about the fear of what would happen next. And then he writes about the turkey, about the kindness, about the American guard who treated him like a human being instead of a prisoner. He ends the letter with a sentence that captures everything. Mother, we invaded America thinking they were weak. We were wrong. They are strong in ways I never understood. Strong enough to show mercy. Strong enough to feed their enemies. Strong enough to prove that their values are not just words but actions. I do not know when I will come home, but when I do, I will tell everyone. We did not lose to American weapons. We lost to American principles. December 2027, Helena, Montana. The airport is crowded with families. Soldiers returning from the war. Reunions playing out across the terminal. Tears and embraces and the kind of joy that only comes from separation survived. Cole walks through the gate. He is thinner than he was. His eyes are older. The Medal of Honor hangs around his neck, a piece of metal that is somehow both weightless and unbearably heavy. It represents courage. It represents sacrifice. It represents the 11 men from his regiment who died under his command and whose families will receive this same medal posthumously, but for them, it will be a poor exchange for a son or husband or father. Emily sees him first. She runs. Not graceful, not slow, just runs, crashes into him. He catches her, holds her. She smells like home, like vanilla and laundry soap and everything safe and good in the world. He buries his face in her hair and lets himself feel what he has not allowed himself to feel for 4 months. Fear, relief, grief, love. All of it flooding through him in a wave that makes his knees weak and his chest tight and his eyes burn. Ethan stands back, 5 years old. He has seen his father on video calls, but not in person since June. 4 months is a lifetime for a child. He does not recognize this man with the medal and the haunted eyes in the too tight embrace of his mother. Cole sees this, sees his son's uncertainty. It breaks something in him that the war could not break. He kneels, eye level, waits, lets Ethan come to him. Hey, buddy, it is Daddy, I am home. Ethan hesitates. Then something clicks, recognition, memory, relief. He runs, throws himself at Cole. Small arms wrap around a big neck. Cole catches him, lifts him, holds him like he is the most precious thing in the world, which he is. I missed you, Daddy. Cole cannot speak. If he speaks, he will break. So he just holds his son and lets the tears come and does not care who sees. That night, after Ethan is asleep, Cole sits on the porch. Emily brings coffee. They sit in silence watching the Montana night. The stars are bright. The air is cold. Everything is exactly as it was 4 months ago. Except Cole. Cole is different. Emily asks the question she has been afraid to ask. Are you okay? Cole considers lying. Decides she deserves truth. No, I'm not okay. I don't know if I will ever be okay again. I did things, Em. I saw things. I lost men. Good men. Men who trusted me. Men whose faces I see every time I close my eyes. He pauses, breathes, continues. But I am here. I am alive. I am home. And that is more than 89 of my soldiers can say. So I will figure out how to be okay. For you, for Ethan, for them. Emily takes his hand, says nothing. There are no words that help, no platitudes that ease, just presence, just the knowledge that he is not alone. They sit like that until dawn, watching the sky lighten, watching the world wake up, watching life continue as if the war never happened. Because for most Americans, it did not happen. They saw it on news, they read articles, but they did not live it, did not bleed for it, did not lose pieces of themselves in an Oregon Valley. That is the covenant. Soldiers fight so civilians do not have to. Soldiers carry the weight so civilians can live free. It is unfair. It is necessary. It is the bargain that has kept America safe for 250 years. 10 years later, August 2037, Hill 472 is now a national memorial. The summit has been cleared, a monument erected, black granite walls inscribed with 4,290 names. Every American who died in the Cascadia campaign, every soldier who paid the price for freedom. The dedication ceremony draws thousands, veterans, families, civilians who want to remember, politicians who want to be seen remembering. The usual mix of genuine grief and political theater that characterizes every memorial service. But today is different, because among the crowd is a face that does not belong. A man who should be an enemy but stands now as a guest, as a friend, as a living symbol of reconciliation. Viktor Volkov, 55 years old, released from American custody in 2030, has returned, not as a prisoner, as an American citizen. He became naturalized 3 years ago. He lives in Houston now, teaches history at a high school, tells his students about the day he learned that strength is not power but mercy. He approaches Mendoza, who is now 65, retired, walking with a slight limp from the hip he injured on this hill. They have not seen each other in 7 years, but the recognition is immediate. They shake hands, then embrace. Former enemies, current friends. A transformation that seems impossible until you understand that they were never truly enemies. They were soldiers following orders, and when the orders stopped, the humanity remained. Volkov speaks. His English is good now. 10 years in Texas will do that. General Mendoza, I came to say thank you. For what, Victor? For treating me like a human being when I deserved nothing. For showing me what America really is. I spent my life fighting democracy. You taught me why democracy is worth fighting for. Mendoza grips his shoulder. This man who tried to kill him, who he defeated, who he spared. They are connected now in a way that transcends nationality or politics or history. You were a good soldier, Victor, just on the wrong side. Not anymore. Volkov nods. His eyes are wet. He gestures to the memorial, to the names. I tell my students about this place, about these men. I tell them that America won not because of better weapons, but better values. That mercy is not weakness. That kindness is strength. They do not always understand, but someday they will. The ceremony begins. Speakers take the podium, generals and senators, and the vice president. They talk about sacrifice and heroism and the enduring spirit of America. The words are fine, necessary, but also hollow in the way that official words always are. Then they call Marcus Webb to speak. Webb is 29 now. He walks to the podium on a prosthetic leg, high-tech carbon fiber. He does not limp. The technology has progressed. But everyone knows, everyone sees. This man left part of himself on this hill. He stands at the podium, looks out at the crowd, takes a breath, begins. I was 19 when I came to this hill. I was a kid, scared, trying to prove I was a man. I lost my leg up there. I lost friends. I lost pieces of myself I will never get back. He pauses. The crowd is silent, waiting. But I gained something too. I learned what it means to be an American, not just fighting for freedom, but extending freedom to others, even enemies. He gestures to Volkov standing in the crowd. That man tried to kill me. His soldiers put me in this wheelchair for 6 months before I could walk again. And you know what? I do not hate him. Because General Mendoza taught me that hate is easy, mercy is hard, and America is built on doing hard things. Another pause. Webb's voice strengthens. When I was lying on this hill bleeding out thinking I was going to die, General Mendoza ran through machine gun fire to save me. He was 55 years old. He could have died, but he came anyway. Because in the American military, rank matters, but humanity matters more. Later that day, I watched him give water to enemy prisoners while our own men were dying of thirst. I did not understand it then. I do now. He was not just winning a battle. He was proving that American values are not just propaganda. They are principles we live by even when it costs us, especially when it costs us. The crowd erupts in applause, but Webb is not finished. Everyone here wants to thank us for our service, thank us for our sacrifice. That is kind. But you know what would mean more? Living by the values we fought for, treating each other with dignity, showing mercy to those who do not deserve it, extending kindness even when it is hard. That is what these 4,000 names represent. Not just soldiers who died, but soldiers who proved that America is more than a place. It is an idea. The idea that every human being has worth, that mercy is strength, that we are defined not by our worst moments, but by how we respond to them. If you want to honor us, live that way, not just on Memorial Day days, but every day, in how you treat your neighbors, your co-workers, even people you disagree with. Be American not just in name, but in action. Webb steps down. The applause is deafening. Veterans' prayers are crying. Civilians are crying. Volkov is openly sobbing. After the ceremony, Reynolds, Mendoza, and Cole stand together at the memorial wall. 3 soldiers who never met before the war, who now meet every year on this date, who are bound by what they did and what it cased and what it meant. Reynolds traces a name on the wall. Sergeant David Martinez, one of his staff officers, killed in the first week. 26 years old, newlywed, Reynolds wrote the letter to his widow, attended the funeral, watched her collapse at the graveside. That memory is carved deeper than any granite. This was worth it. What we did here, it had to be worth it. Cole answers. His voice carries the exhaustion of 10 years of therapy and nightmares, and slowly learning to live with what he has seen. It was worth it because we made it worth it. Not just by winning, by how we won. That is what I tell myself on the bad days. Mendoza adds the final thought. The wisdom of a man who spent his childhood under communism and his adulthood defending democracy. My father used to say that America is an experiment. Every generation has to prove it still works. We proved it, not perfectly, but honestly. We showed that democracy can fight and win without becoming tyranny. That is our legacy. They stand in silence. 3 old soldiers, survivors, remembering the dead, honoring the sacrifice, knowing that the battle they fought on this hill will echo through history, not because of the tactics or the technology, but because of the humanity they preserved in the midst of inhumanity. The sun sets over Hill 472. The American flag on the memorial catches the last light glowing like fire. An eagle soars overhead, wings spread riding thermal currents up from the valley. The valley where 40,000 men learned that America wins, not because it is the strongest, but because it is the best. Because it holds itself to standards that seem impossible and achieves them anyway. Because it treats enemies with dignity and prisoners with mercy and the defeated with hope. This is the story that history will remember. Not the weapons, not the casualties, not the strategic brilliance, but this. The moment when America faced the ultimate test and proved that its values are not aspirations, but commitments. Not words, but actions. Not propaganda, but truth. The 3 soldiers walk down from the hill. Behind them, families gather at the wall, touching names, leaving flowers, whispering prayers. Above them, the flag waves in the evening breeze, bullet holes and carbon stains still visible, still honored, still flying. America fought a war on its own soil and won. But more importantly, America won without losing itself, without abandoning its principles, without becoming what it fought against. That is the victory. That is the legacy. That is why 50 years from now, people will visit this hill and understand that true strength is not the power to destroy, but the courage to show mercy. Not the ability to hate, but the wisdom to forgive. Not winning at any cost, but winning while remaining worthy of victory. The sun sets, the day ends, the memorial stands, and America remembers. Not just the battle, but the values, not just the victory, but the price, not just the soldiers who fought, but the civilians who waited, not just the enemies who surrendered, but the friends they became. This is America, imperfect, striving, always reaching for ideals it does not always achieve but never abandons. This is the American way. This is the American promise. This is why even in the darkest moments, America endures. Because mercy is stronger than vengeance. Because kindness is more powerful than cruelty. Because the values we fight for matter more than the battles we win. Remember that. Honor that. Live that. That is how we honor the 4,290 names on this wall. Not with words, but with lives lived according to the principles they died defending. Freedom, dignity, mercy, justice. The American way.